All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 15th Town Council meeting, and we will begin as always with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first order of business that we have is I need a motion to seal the minutes from our non-public meeting.
I'll make a motion to seal the minutes from the non-public meeting.
Second.
Council Finch.
Aye.
Council Sanders.
Aye.
Council Dumont.
Aye.
Council Kuiper.
Aye.
Council Cast.
Aye.
Council Burns.
Aye.
Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
And then the next item that we have is our public forum. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak. If you want to, sorry, Andrew, who's here for one of the appointments. If you want to, if you have something to say about the Energy and Environment Committee appointment, if you want to wait until we do the nominations, I think that's is going to make the most sense if that's okay.
Okay.
Great. Assuming that that's what you want to talk about. So the next item that we have is to consider acceptance of minutes, and we have our meeting minutes from May 1st, 2019. So I'd take a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from May 1st, 2019.
Second.
Any questions?
Both sets of minutes? What am I thinking?
Oh,
The April 17 as well?
May 1st?
Or am I looking at the non-public meeting minutes too? They're not.
They weren't in our packet.
You're only approving May 1st today.
Okay, that's fine. Just a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we would approve those.
Oh, that's right, because we did have non-public
May 1st?
minutes that I sent to Wendy.
Okay, I'll double check.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot about them, to be perfectly honest. So any questions, changes to the May 1st minutes?
Council Finch.
Aye.
Council Sanders.
Aye.
Council Dumont.
Aye.
Council Kuiper.
Aye.
Council Cast.
Aye.
Council Burns.
Aye.
Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
And next we have the report of the town administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First item, as the council is aware, we had to postpone our goal-setting session that was scheduled for May 8th. Is now scheduled for June 12th at 6 p.m. in the auditorium. So we'll be kicking that off that evening. We did receive bids. Well, we went out for bid for the McAllen Dam. We solicited immediately after the approval in March. Bids are due April 19th, and we received no bids. The engineer asked a number of the contractors what the issue was, and they all came back with similar responses, that they cannot take on any more workload at this time to even bid the project because of the time of year, and they cannot manage the project successfully based on their current workloads. So going out for a project like that in April is not, March for summer construction season is not always the best timing. So we're going to look at our options. Our intention is to rebid the project in the fall with a start date in 2020. Just so we can give everybody more time to do it. I'm pleased to inform the Town Council that I have graduated as a member of the class of 2019 for Leadership New Hampshire. Leadership New Hampshire, for those who don't know, is a program that increases civic engagement and strengthens communities through the connecting and educating of a diverse pool of engaged or emerging leaders about the state of New Hampshire. We had a class, it was actually a larger class of 41 emerging and established leaders across the state, and we do a comprehensive study of issues, communities, and challenges of states. We've gone from everything from having lunch at the Cheshire County Jail. The last meeting I was not here because we spent 3 days in the North Country to look at issues that they face, everything from arts and culture to economy in the North Country, but we also look at a state level. We've spent a day in the governor's office. We spent time at Dartmouth Hitchcock to review medical and everything. I personally felt it was a great learning opportunity. I was the only government individual in there. There was, I take it back, there was one person who works in Department of Health and Human Services. Everybody else was everything from the dean of the Paul School at UNH, a couple prominent attorneys to people who run, there's a surgeon at one of the hospitals in Manchester as well. So it was really a diverse group. We all learned more about what we do from doing that. I didn't have a huge background in medical. So when I went to the hospital, I learned a lot more what the rest of the state is facing for medical. Which was probably the most eye-opening for me because we live in an area where there's actually competition for hospitals, where you see hospitals building in other communities. The rest of the state doesn't see that. They're actually closing hospitals or reducing services because they don't have the need for maternity wards anymore, or items like that they just don't need it because it doesn't have the population anymore. So it's really fascinating. I do want to thank the council for the support this past year. I know it was a couple of times I've been out of the office for that, but I do think it was a great investment for the community. Just to let everyone know, the American Legion Post 67 is planning the Town Memorial Day Parade for this year. As always, it's held on the actual day of Memorial Day, which is May 30th. This year falls on a Thursday. The route remains the same. It's line up on Elm Street at the library, march through downtown, up South Main, turn onto Packers Fall, ending at the Riverside Cemetery. Lineup starts at 5:30 with a step off at 6, and it's about 6:30 for the ceremony at Riverside Cemetery. Traditionally, the town council chair and I speak at that. Traditionally, we meet only once in the months of July and August to allow for vacations and other items. It's always difficult to get a quorum, and I don't think anybody wants to meet on the 3rd of July this coming year. I'd recommend canceling the 3rd and the 7th meetings and only meeting on July 17th and 21st. We can always meet in an emergency session if it arises. So if there's any objection, if not, we'll just go for that schedule. We received a 79E application for Community Revitalization Tax Incentive from Lane Cheney for the Selectwood Building. What this is a state law that encourages investments in downtowns and village centers. It provides a tax incentive for the rehab and active use of underutilized commercial buildings. So basically what we'd be doing is freezing the assessed value of the building for a set number of years at the current rate in order to allow the individual to recoup the construction costs, so we wouldn't be taxing them at the new value right away. We've done that for 2 facilities. One is the old Joyce's Kitchen, the blacksmith shop on the river, and I think the biggest one, and what we've actually used for the poster child for the state of New Hampshire, is the mills. So I'm reviewing the application currently and should have a resolution for the first reading at the next meeting. One item I do not have on my written report, since we did this after, on Friday, myself, the chiefs of police, fire / DPW director, and the community development director met in my office with the commissioner of the Department of Transportation for the state, as well as the District 6 Bureau Chief, which is the region that runs this area, to discuss a lot of the issues, as many of the councilors know, we've had with DOT over the past number of years, everything from not notifying us when there would be major road closures to not giving assistance with certain projects in town, and finally to the actually having to sue the state of, be sued by the state of New Hampshire over a project that they had that we were managing for them, that they were trying to get additional funds from us, and that we were ultimately successful in court. We wanted to sort of air out our issues and try to move on from that and come to new solutions of what we can do and communicate better with each other. One of the things that I think we as a town the next few years ought to investigate is creating an urban compact for our community. If you ever notice those little green and white signs when you're going into areas like Exeter or Dover or Portsmouth, basically it's stating that while this is a state route, this is now the responsibility of the municipality. So basically our big thing is we maintain Main Street. I mean, we plow it more often than the state does. We're not supposed to, but we do. It's sort of an agreement. We always get the headaches of, okay, there's something going on Main Street, why can't we do X, Y, Z? Well, we don't own it. It's not our main street. It's actually the state of New Hampshire's Route 108. This would allow us to actually take control of of the streets that are in our community that most people think we already do. I'm going to be working with attorney as well as ultimately the legislative delegation to see how we go upon doing this. Most communities, especially mill communities like ours, did that back in the 50s and 60s when the law went into place. I don't know when the last time a community actually entered into one. So we're going to start looking at that. Somebody said, well, that was the big discussion was, well, you're going to have to maintain it. Well, we already do. So it's just basically taking the ownership. Other than that, I think it went really well. We've agreed to notify each other better when we have to do projects. We told them, look, we've got most people on our speed dial that we can inform that there's going to be a closure in the community, whereas you don't. So we'd be willing to say, we'll help you no matter what we can. So I think it was very successful. And the other item I do not have on my written report is, as I mentioned, that the director of IT is retiring at the end of the fiscal year. We have been working on first trying to find a consultant firm or IT firm to come in to provide IT services on a contractual basis for the time being. That will allow us to do a number of things. One, it will, the IT director has agreed that he won't disappear in the sunset on his retirement day, that he'll be willing to work with the community to transfer things over. One of the big things I want the new contractor to do is basically provide an audit of our services that we have and of our equipment. We've had a one-person show for a number of years, and I want to make sure that we've been doing it correctly, not saying that we haven't, but what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what can we improve? And really do a data dump from the individual to a bigger group so we can make sure there's some backup there. Ultimately, I think it's my goal, and I hope it'd be the council's, is to look at IT as another step towards shared services, if that's possible in the future with the schools. I think it's just a logical place to go, but I just want to make sure before we start that we have our own house in order before we go to the next level. And that's all I have tonight.
I have a question. So just a question regarding the schedule for the summer. There was a June date that we were talking about. Were you thinking of pushing that one? June 19th to 26th? Oh, sorry, did I jump the gun?
No.
Okay.
So the 19th of June, I have the annual City and Town Managers Conference for the state of New Hampshire. Last year it was in Portsmouth, so it would have been easy to go from a meeting to the conference. This year it's in Lincoln, so it'd be very difficult to get to there. We could, looking at the agenda, we could either postpone. I could either have the chief of police is going to have something in, so I can have him sit in. I should ask him before I say it on TV. Then also, or we could postpone it 1 week and have it on the 26th. So I didn't know what's the wish of the council.
I'll be out of town the 26th.
I'm good with either date.
I'm available either date. It's just,
It's up to, I mean, if you,
yeah.
I can do the 26th. That doesn't bother me either. If we postpone it 1 week.
Okay.
That way too is that it won't have the big gap between the
Right.
first meeting in June and then, the next meeting in July. The second meeting in June, and the next meeting in July. Okay, so the second meeting in June will be on the 26th and not the 19th.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wanted to, mostly for any of the newer counselors, or even as a reminder that the town administrator's report is a time to ask any questions about that are included, of items that are included in the report, but then also the department reports. So if anybody has any questions about the department reports, this is the opportunity to ask those questions. So. Seeing none. Then we can move on to committee reports.
I can start. So the planning board met last night, and they approved the cell tower.
That was the other thing I was going to report.
Ah.
May
I saw it.
May I
So-
sneak in real quick?
Sure.
Since the planning board approved the cell tower, as the council's aware, the town has been negotiating with a company, with AT&T, to place a monopole cell tower on the fire station property. It will go on the hill in the back. There were balloon tests. The planning board did approve the application last evening. The council now will have a lease agreement between the company and the town for first reading at the next meeting, and the second reading on the for either vote or further study on the 26th. Yes, it's a lease, so we will be receiving funds from there, as well as space on the pole for radio if need be. This pole is part of the FirstNet project. We were approached by AT&T. FirstNet is a federal program that after 9/11, it was determined that there are many, many gaps in our cellular service. Another thing I learned in leadership in New Hampshire, you get better service in Kenya on the savannah than you do in Berlin, New Hampshire. That being said, this is a gap that they found between the town of Durham and Newmarket. That there's a big drop off, and I think most people know there's a big, huge drop off in cell service. This would provide that cell service that's needed.
Also, other carriers
Yes.
can piggyback on this pole.
Yeah.
Which is, so it's not just AT&T.
Right.
How long will that take to get up?
I don't think it's not going to be that long.
Not long.
Actually, most of it's the site work, because they're going to have to build a gravel road up there and then flatten it out some and put the power up to it and lines.
Like months, not years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have anything else from the?
That was the big thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other committees?
I had a quick thing about composting, but now be the time to mention that.
Sure.
I was just talking to one of the guy from Mr. Fox who picks up our compost, and he suggested that the town could probably go to picking up once a week instead of twice. At this point, there just wasn't a ton of compost there, and I thought, he's the guy that's picking it up, he would probably know. I mean, I anticipate he'll probably pick up more as we get the word out there, but, he's the driver, so.
Yes.
I met with the Newmarket Business Association again, and the topic of the waste signs came up. So I guess my question is, who do I talk to about waste signs in the town?
The direction, like finding businesses.
Correct.
I'm actually looking at introducing an ordinance to allow us to do that. I know we have the ordinance to allow us. I just want to make sure we have the right design, we have the right style. I'm going to talk with the community development director as well.
Okay.
And my thought too is if we do that, I would rather do a complete look at a streetscaping for signage as a whole. As I mentioned before, the Main Street Corporation is looking at doing signage, because if you ever notice, if you drive down Main Street, there's one street sign that doesn't exist, and that's Main Street. So we're looking at doing more like a historical / aesthetically pleasing street signs for the downtown area, as well as replacing any of the poles that hold the signs with black poles and a base on the bottom to fit in with those light fixtures. So we're trying to do it all at once than piecemeal.
Could that include things like parking ahead? Because I just think when you drive through town, additional parking to the right or something like that. Or is that a different type of thing?
One of the things we learned from DOT is the signs that we can and cannot put up, and that we have to follow federal rules on certain parking, especially on Route 108.
Okay.
So I have to look at what we can put up for parking.
Just a quick question. We talked about
a certain design style going? Would that be like the sign that's down by the blinking light just before the railroad tracks, the one that's up on that small pole, like hooked to the Newmarket sign?
It would be something. It wouldn't be wood. It'd probably be. You see them in a lot of, say, Florida, newer communities that have like the planned downtowns from day one. You'll see a sign that'll say, Main Street Downtown District or Main Street, and have some kind of design on the top. Concord recently did. Portsmouth has started doing it in downtown. They've switched all their street signs to a maroon color with design like that. So we'd be doing something similar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other committees? The Energy and Environment Committee did meet, and that was last week. And I just want to give an overview of some of the conversation that we had. We had Rick Mulaski, the DPW director, and a representative from our weed control company, Justin Adams, and they presented a lot of information. We asked them a ton of questions. They gave us an overview of our current program, and we talked about things like posting. We talked about alternatives. We talked about the cost of our program now, as well as the cost of some of the alternatives. We addressed some of the community concerns. So for the council to be aware, we will be submitting a report to the council with some recommendations. Some of the things that we talked about were just creating a better system for opting out, because people do have they can opt out of the spraying. Making sure that people are informed about the process and exactly like where the spraying occurs. And we'll be talking about the cost and the usefulness of the current program that we have. So we'll be working on that information and getting that to the council probably for our after the next Energy and Environment Committee meeting, and we approve that, it'll be the next town council meeting after that. And we also talked about composting at that meeting, and Rick Belaski said that about 27 people per Saturday are using the composting, are dropping off compost. So it's a really strong start. It's only been a month, so that's all I have. So the next item on our agenda is resolutions in the second reading. And so the first item is Resolution 2018-2019-38, Water and Sewer Rate Increase for FY 2019-2020. I'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-2019-38, increase of water and sewer rates.
Second. I'm going to ask the Environmental Services Director to discuss this.
As you can see, to your the stuff in the packet is the sewer back in 2013 had to build a wastewater treatment plant. We discussed with the town council how we were going to pay for that, and it was overwhelming that we're going to do level increases rather than one large increase. So we started increasing the rates early, so it would be a level increase. So this is our yearly increase. We're looking to go from, and actually if you look at it, it says that we're going to do 76 cents a year every year till we get to around $13.54. We still need to get to that $13.54, but been able to slow it down a little bit. So we're looking to raise the rates to $11.40 with a $10 a quarter system charge. And on the water side, we're looking to raise the rates to anticipation of all the water projects that we're looking to do. And that's to move the rate from $4.95 to $5.25 with a $10 per quarter service charge.
Any questions, any comments?
How are you able to slow it down?
We've been able to, when we projected them in the first place, we looked at what the cost of the loans were gonna be, what the cost of O&M were gonna be. We've been able to control those costs a little bit, and some more money has come in than anticipated, so we're able to ramp it back a little bit.
Okay.
So we review these rates every year to see what we can do.
I think it's great that you're able to slow it down.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
So-
I'd rather not raise them at all, but
Yeah.
have to do it.
Well, right.
Seeing no other questions, I'm gonna call the roll.
Counselor Finch.
Aye.
Counselor Sanders.
Aye.
Counselor Dumont.
Aye.
Counselor Kuiper.
Aye.
Counselor Cass.
Aye.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Coming out.
Thank you.
So now we have resolution in the fourth reading. Resolution 2018-2019-36, electronic message boards. I'll accept a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-2019-36, withdrawal from Technology Capital Reserve Fund for electronic message boards.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I understand, there were a number of questions on the purpose of the electronic message board. What this is are 3 commercial grade televisions. The reason for commercial grade is because they're going to be on much more than any private homeowner's television, so they won't burn out as fast. Units to be installed out in the hallway at Town Hall, where one currently is in the town clerk's office that is dying, as well as one in the entryway at the bottom of the stairs. These will all be, the part of the cost is of course the installation, the wiring, the setup there to have the message boards there. They will all have what is called airtime on there. Currently the one in the clerk's office there's a computer in the wall that's providing a PowerPoint presentation. So when you have to update it, it's a difficult situation. Airtime is a $300. It looks literally like a hockey puck, and it plugs in the back. It connects to Wi-Fi in their software with a Google Slide application. We would then be able to wirelessly control all 3 monitors from different locations, everywhere from, if something comes up, we can do it at home, or we can do it from our offices. What our intention is to do here is the one in the main entryway would be what's going on in town hall today, what kind of meetings and where, if there aren't, as well as having information on where you can find offices in here, because that does move around sometimes, and we want to update that. Even to the point where we could have, today because for the last 2 weeks we've had advanced placement testing in the town hall. We can have it say, look, advanced placement testing is in the auditorium. There's going to be meetings upstairs. We can change that on a daily basis. The intent on the sign in the hallway is to remove some of the paper signs you see everywhere and to have it in a more dynamic, easily viewable electronic board that we can update constantly, and have that there with quick notices, because most people just walk by, but something may catch their eye, they can read it. In the clerk's office, and the way it's currently being used, is that it has the longer messages on there, because that's where you're waiting in line. So you're sitting there, you can read something on the board that this is what's coming up, and they right now maintain that one only. The other advantage of having it wirelessly, and one of the things that I was thinking about, is that if there's an emergency, usually it's snow, and we can't open town hall, the one in the main entryway, I could make the decision at home, close it, change it, and it's a red sign that says town hall closed today, and people would be able to see it. If there's any other kind of emergency kind of message that we need to put out on all of them, we can just do it immediately, and it'll change all of them. So it's basically, it's a $2,000 investment in each location, including installation and training and everything there. We are also ultimately would look at rolling out at least, we would love to do 3 more. We'd definitely do 2. One at the PD, which they would control with some of their safety messages on there, as well as information they need. And recreation, we also have a different audience down there. But ultimately, it's one big system that we can all just add on to. The benefits of what the current system is, we don't have an individual computer at every location, and it's not based on PowerPoint. It's cloud based, so we can change it easier. The last location, which I'd have to talk to them, I would love to put one in the library, of course, because that's a public. But I'd have to get permission first from the library trustees. But it would also have their own messages. But we would be able to put in, if we have a general announcement to put in, we can do it that way. So that is the system. What we're requesting tonight is the withdrawal from the capital reserve fund. Capital reserve monies are monies that have already been put aside. So they're sitting in an account that when we need it, we have a technology project like this, we can go in there and dip in and do it. Most of these capital reserve funds for technology were created back when computers cost $3,000 on everyone's desktop, and it was more of a capital item, where now it's more of an operation cost that we just buy a computer out of equipment lines because they're so inexpensive. And so what we've been looking at is trying to update other types of technology in town, and this is one of them. We worked with a company that was, it's a commercial installer, because we didn't want to try to piecemeal it, out of Dover, called Stimuli Sight and Sound, and they have experience doing corporate work. So that is the intention of the message boards.
Any questions?
Couple. Was this, I can't remember if this particular project was in the CIP?
It was not.
It was not. Okay.
It was not. The reason why we're withdrawn from the capital reserve is, again, we don't have a lot of CIP projects,
Yeah.
and it's under the threshold for CIP.
Right, I saw that. Okay, that makes sense. What'll be the balance of the capital reserve?
It's still be in the, I believe it's just under 40,000 after.
Is this based on, like, what kind of experiences or issues have come up that have been driving folks to think that this is,
I'm hearing more from places that have done it and the successes they've had. The town of Londonderry has done it. Some other municipalities. I knew Londonderry because I was in there once, and I noticed that they're having their announcements on boards when you're walking through, versus just on the piece of paper on the wall that nobody reads. They said it was more successful getting it out, that information that way. The other one that I noticed recently for quasi-business was the municipal association, where they have a lot of meetings in their facility. Well, the health trust, since it's their facility, they have a lot of meetings in there, and they're able to put up there, okay, you're meeting in this room, you're meeting in that room, and people would just go to there and look at it instead of roaming around the building trying to figure out where they had to go. So they're finding more success in communicating those day-to-day things by putting it on a screen than taping the piece of paper to the window. And to be honest, it just doesn't look good, because those things stay up too long on the windows, usually longer than they need to be. So it's just, they're finding, I've talked to other communities that are looking at installing them as well. It's just people, it's our new life, people tend to look at the screen before they look at a piece of paper. So that's why we're trying to get the messages out that way.
So it's kind of an optics thing to give a more professional, responsive, communicative impression of,
Exactly.
of our local town government.
Yeah, and hopefully it's more responsive too.
I have just a couple of questions. How do you intend to measure the success of this? It's just general feedback from the public?
Exactly.
Okay. And then following that, assuming they're successful, will you just approach us for another CIP poll to do the others, or?
Odds are yes, if we don't have the funds in the budget, if we can't find some money somewhere else.
And what's your time frame for that?
I'd say 6 months.
Okay. Reasonable. Thank you.
Yep.
So I had a question which was actually more of a suggestion, given the timing of the project you've got with the IT director's retirement, and where you said you wanted to, assess and see what's what. Would it make more sense to wait until after that assessment's done?
This was not so much his project. It was I initiated it. I think we should be fine doing it this way, since it's I sat in all the meetings, reviewed all the technology, reviewed what the staff can, the staff's ability. I think we're fine with this.
I just meant more in terms of the funds and that would be
No, I think we're
available for
fine.
other
Funding,
things.
we're fine. I don't think there'd be heavy issues there.
Okay.
From talking to one consultant so far, no, we should be fine.
So this is something that the, the people in the office would be able to change it themselves. We don't
Yep.
need someone from IT actually doing it. So
Absolutely.
it's all managed.
That's one of the big things that we're trying to do is be able to have people do it on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from now, the agendas now are being written by department heads. Before, you used to have to come to me and go to my assistant, and we'd put it together. Now it's just going, they get in there, fill out, populate the information, and then we do it quicker that way. It's been so much of a time saver. Same thing here. There's going to be certain messages in certain places that they can put on, and then there's going to be town-wide ones that we'll do from probably my office that'll have the same message.
Let's say you get a network of these things up and running, will you have oversight to see everything at all times?
Yes.
What the messages are?
Yep.
Will they have to go through approval for you to get something up on there?
I'm not gonna veto if the police are putting up, parking ban information or stuff like that. But if it's, usually we'll do the same as if we do with the cable channel. Anything political in nature, anything that's advocating one side or another of an issue, that religious, those kind of items that we just don't put up there. This is a general public information, not a sales place.
I think it's a good system, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Just with all those people being able to edit and add, it's nice to know that there's somebody who can just go in and look like, this is what's playing,
Yep.
and we should probably fix that.
Yeah, and we get that on a lot of things. Everything from the website to, this is out of date, we gotta
Right.
replace it. And the more eyes we get, the better we have a chance of being able to edit it.
The other question I had is, I guess I see some benefits to having it, but you mentioned possibly the police station, rec center. Is this a flat rate, so 2,000 per TV right now, or are we getting a discount for doing free? Because I guess 6 months from now.
No, that's the rate. It's
Okay.
not gonna. It's
So
not
there'd be no
discounted.
savings to do
No.
the other locations now.
Yep. The only difference may be at those locations, depending on, I don't know what exactly would be placed. It could be the size of the TV.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if you
it
use
could be-
that small entry.
Right.
So would it be kind of similar to maybe slides that we see on Channel 13, or no?
No, I think it'll be more personalized for the locations and what's going on. You would have some of those slides in there, say
Okay.
like in here for the general information, instead of having that notice on there, it says, hey, recycling, composting. Instead of having
Right,
that
that-
just
I guess
posted
that's what
on
I
the,
mean,
on the
yes.
board, we could put that on there and people would walk by, oh, there's composting now, and it could say more information, go here. After a few minutes, it'll switch to some other message.
Right.
Down in the,
Upcoming events.
Exactly.
Okay.
that kind of thing, or even if we have a bunch of meetings, I would even put on this level, you're meeting here today, and on the next level, we just switch those things out. The main entrance is the welcome, where the offices are, and what the meetings are for that day. And then the clerks is the much longer, hey, this is what you can put in your recycling, boom, 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 because you're stuck there for 2 minutes. So,
The one at the library, you said we would need the permission of the library trustees. Would that come out of the library budget?
since we're recommending it, I would not say
Okay.
that,
I was
because,
just
and also,
curious.
my feeling is, if I wanna have a town-wide message board
Mm.
that we could change in an emergency, I think we should kick in
Okay.
for that one.
In terms of powering them off, I'm assuming the ones inside will be powered down, and that one would probably stay on.
The one in the beginning, and it could, we're gonna look at possibly putting on time, looking at, they'll be on timers.
Timers, okay.
Yeah. So when meetings are going on, the one in the clerk's office will shut down when they're not there.
Okay.
The one in the hallways, even if there's a meeting going on, we'll have them on, because, sometimes, like, non-public session, there are a number of people out there waiting, they'll be getting the information by looking at it, and same with the entranceway.
Do you have a plan for who's gonna be responsible for making sure and what the protocol is?
As
like
of
what
right
they should be
now,
posting?
Myself, IT, the clerk
Mhm.
for her office, and my assistant.
Mhm.
That's it.
Okay.
Because we don't, and that's the other thing, we don't wanna have, too much on there either, cause then people won't get the information. So, I mean, as soon as if it gets approved, I'm gonna make sure not only that, but I want a style guide too, so it doesn't look like a mishmash of, I wanna look professional, and I don't want everybody, that's why I want limited access, cause I want all the notices to look pretty much the same.
Right.
And I don't want the clip art up there, I don't want pictures of things. I want
Yep.
professional looking, this is the way it's gonna look.
That was why I was asking about, you
Yeah.
know, what exactly is the goal? And
Yeah.
it's part of it's to promote an atmosphere and,
And that's one thing I want to
communication.
start doing in general. I want to have a common design across things for the town.
So then that would be incentive to cut down on paper
Exactly.
by having that up there. And is there any chance that if it's some type of slideshow, could that be linked to our website so people could also see that information?
You know, I have
possibly?
no idea, but I'll look.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm assuming if it's going to be a Google slide, whatever that program is, yeah, I should be able to.
So that could be helpful as well,
Yep.
too. That'd be one way to help.
I mean, that's been something that we've talked about as a council and in different other forums, just the communication and finding a way to reach more people. And so especially when we talk about the library and the rec department, I think getting more information in front of the eyes of different residents and more people, I think is a real benefit.
so again, I mean, this is the tool set. I just want to make sure that that there's a plan to make sure it's used effectively.
We will. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Sounds like.
that's a day to day.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do.
Okay.
The other place I can see people congregating is the senior center.
Yeah, I didn't even. You know what? I didn't even think of that. But that's a
Yeah.
good
I
place too.
think that'd be a great
Yep.
place.
That is a
It
great
has a lot
place.
of foot traffic.
Yep.
And a lot of
Absolutely.
people who vote.
Yep. Yep. That's a fourth place we can do it.
Right.
So
Right.
Right.
So I would
Yep.
suggest we add that to the
Yep.
list.
we'll see how these go, and then definitely.
Any last comments?
I feel better having the conversation.
Yes.
I kind of figured after two there was something. There was something missing.
Gonna call the roll,
Okay.
please.
Council Finch.
Aye.
Council Sanders.
Aye.
Council Dumont.
Aye.
Council Kuiper.
Aye.
Council Cass.
Aye.
Council Byrne.
Aye.
Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
See what happens when you miss
I
meetings?
know.
All right. So the next item on our agenda, under new business correspondence, is for the town council to consider nominations and appointments. And tonight we have, this is a first in my experience on the council. We have two applications for one position at the Energy and Environment Committee. And with that said, so we have Andrew DeMayo. Andrew DeMayo is here. He is one of the applications and would like to say a few words. So, please.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Andrew DeMayo, and I live at 2 Spring Street in Newmarket. I am here tonight to address the council in person with regards to my application for Newmarket's Energy and Environment Advisory Committee. Before I proceed, I'd first like to thank the council for taking the time to consider and review my application and for giving me the opportunity to speak during tonight's meeting. I won't rehash my qualifications as they were covered in my application, but instead I'd like to share a brief statement on why I'm interested in joining the committee. I've lived in New Hampshire all my life, out west near Keene, up north in the Lakes region in central and southern New Hampshire, and of course here in our beloved seacoast. And as a lifelong New Hampshireite, I know I'm not exaggerating when I say that I think that Newmarket represents the best of what this state has to offer its citizens. I've had the pleasure of living here for the last 2 years and have seen and got to know the people, the businesses, the government, and the charm. But even in that short time span, I've witnessed change. You know, all places, all people, all towns change, but as a prospective public servant, it is my truest belief that resilient communities face change together and do their best not to shirk from challenges, but to plan for a future which optimizes abundance for all. In 1987, the United Nations defined sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As a sustainability professional, I spend my work days thinking and working towards the possibilities afforded by this philosophy. In my heart of hearts, I believe that a more sustainable world is not one where we are limited, but one in which our communities are nourished by partnership, civic engagement, liberty, and prosperity. It's true that the world's biggest challenges face all levels of government, but in my opinion, there is No better or more important stage on which to solve our problems than local politics, starting with committees like this one, supported by leaders like yourselves. I hope to be a part of that work in the town I know and love. In closing, please know that I welcome any questions for the council and am grateful for this chance to address you all in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions?
No. Any question on someone?
So, okay. Just to talk a little bit about the process. So, we do have another application, and I do have a brief statement that I'm going to read on behalf of that person. And then what we will do is deliberate and ask any questions that we may have. And then we will, much like we did for, when we elected chair and vice chair, each counselor will state their preference. And that's how we will vote, and assuming that it's not a tie, because it shouldn't be with 7 of us.
I do have a question
Yes.
on the process. So since we have 2 that we're gonna be voting in that manner, do we need to do a motion for both, or how do we?
Oh, that's a good question.
Traditionally, what you do is an individual council will nominate one of the individuals. So you'd say, nominate candidate X. There's no need for a second, and then somebody else will nominate candidate Y. If there's no second nomination, you just vote on the first one. If there's 2 nominations, then you vote. What we'll do is I will call the roll. You state your preferred candidate's name. If they receive a majority, because could be a third person out there, I don't know, then they win. If not, then we'll go around again with the top 2 vote getters.
Okay, thank you. This is a good problem to have.
Yes.
It's an it's an excellent problem to have. The other application that we have is from Henry Smith, and I just have a brief statement from him. He couldn't be here tonight. So, in March 2006, I was elected to the Durham Town Council, and 6 months later, the Town Council approved 4 major brand new conservation easements. I voted for every one of them, as I am a strong believer in conservation. Have been a member and supporter of Stratford Rivers Conservancy, now Southeast Land Trust, which is SELT, for a number of years. There are a number of SELT-approved or SELT-sponsored lands now in conservation in perpetuity across our region. One of these is Stonewall Pond Forest in Barrington, a truly beautiful tract of land which makes for wonderful hikes. And SELT continues to negotiate with private landowners to preserve yet more such valuable lands. In short, I am a strong proponent of conservation. So that is a statement from Henry Smith. So I just had a couple comments about the 2 applications. So I know Henry. I'm friends with Henry. And I have a lot of respect for Henry. I serve with him in another capacity. So I've known him for the last 3 or so years. So that said, I know that he's committed to conservation, and I know that he's committed to the community. That said, when I look at both applications, I see the qualifications that Andrew brings to the table, and as the person who started the Energy and Environment Committee and who currently serves as the chair, I have to say that having a person with that level of expertise would be hugely beneficial to the committee. And as much as I would love to just vote for a friend, I would have to put my support behind Andrew's application just because of the qualifications that he has. So I just wanted to mention that.
I'd agree. I think Andrew's application is more tailored to the energy and environment, and Henry's almost seems more like a conservation commission one with SELT and stuff. So I think they're both strong applications, but I would see Andrew's being the better fit.
Yeah.
When will there be a seat open on the Energy Environment Committee? In a year, or
Traditionally, every year there's a seat open. Or the individual can, either the incumbent can ask for another term, or somebody else can.
assuming? Okay,
Yep.
right. So it'll be a year he could reapply if, assuming that someone. Okay.
Right. And I mean, and the other piece of that again is that I as I mentioned, I know Henry, and I know that he's not going to disappear. You know, he's committed to the community and is involved in many different aspects. He served on the dam committee here in town. So not that I think that Andrew would disappear, just like that, like magic. But I know he's committed to the community and would be regardless of being appointed to this position. So.
Yeah, I just say that I was kind of thinking the same thing that Councilor Finch was thinking, that looking at the two applications, this is a great fit for the Energy Environment Committee, and Mr. Smith would be a really good fit for conservation. Just looking at what they've both done.
So then I would accept a motion at this point,
Nomination.
or nomination. Sorry.
I would move to nominate Andrew DeMayo for the Energy and Environment Commission.
I second that.
No need for a second.
Okay.
All we need is if there's one nomination, if there's another nomination.
I'll nominate Mr. Smith, and as he took the time to apply, and I'm gonna show appreciation for someone stepping up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so procedurally, I'm gonna call the roll. Instead of saying aye or nay, you're gonna state your preferred candidate, so last name, and then we'll tally the votes that way. Okay. Councilor Finch,
DeMayo.
Councilor Sanders,
DeMayo.
Councilor Dumont,
Mr. DeMayo.
Councilor Kuiper,
DeMayo.
Councilor Cass,
Mr. DeMayo?
Councilor Burns,
Mr. DeMayo.
Councilor Weinstein.
DeMayo.
DeMayo wins 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's.
We'll notify you.
Now
We'll
what?
probably send a letter to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have your email, so I will add you to our email list and let you know what the schedule is for our upcoming meetings.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Can I just thank Mr. Smith?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and we always have more openings on more committees.
Exactly.
Are there any positions on the conservation?
Be up on that.
There's probably some coming up.
Yeah. Is there an alternate on the energy? I didn't think so.
No.
Okay.
And the conservation is full, right?
I'll check our status because there's been some ebb and flow, so I'll check at our next meeting. to
Okay.
confirm.
Thank you.
And the Energy and Environment Committee had some positions open for a little while, so, sometimes. All right. So resolutions, ordinances in the first reading. I had it open. Hang on one second. I got it. Or maybe I don't. Wait. I was feeling so proud of myself for having all of this together. Yeah, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Resolution 2018-19-39 paving improvements, whereas the town has extended the paving contract with Bell & Flynn LLC for another year with no price increase, and whereas the following roads are on the road management plan schedule for this year: Bald Hill Road, Dame Road, Terrace Drive, Maple Crest, Langs Lane, Lamprey Street, Ham Street Extension, Sanborn Ave, Boardman Ave, Pond Street, Railroad Street, Tasker Lane, and a portion of Bay Road at the Lebanon Creek Box Culvert Project. And whereas the town budgeted $155,000 towards this expenditure in the operating budget, an additional $250,000 was budgeted in the capital reserve fund to fund the road management plan that was adopted. The capital reserve fund will have a balance of $315,981 on July 1st. The municipal transportation fund will have a balance of $369,418 on July 1st. Now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that the Town Council authorizes the Town Administrator to enter into any agreements with Bell & Flynn with a dollar amount not to exceed $555,000
with $155,000 coming from the operating budget, $250,000 coming from the capital reserve funds, and $150,000 coming from the municipal transportation fund on July 1st, 2019. First reading, May 15th, 2019.
And the second item that we have is an ordinance, and it's ordinance number 2, 2018-2019. An ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Code of the Town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, permitting the sale of alcoholic liquor or beverages on town-owned sidewalks. So the Town of Newmarket ordains, one, the purpose. The purpose of this ordinance is to allow for restaurants permitted to sell alcohol to sell and serve alcohol on a town sidewalk immediately adjacent to their property. 2, amendment. Chapter 26 is hereby amended by adding the following article. And there's a note, deleted items are struck through, items added are bold, italicized, and underlined. Article 3, sidewalk cafes. Section 26-61, service of alcoholic liquor or beverages. Any restaurant as defined in this chapter who is duly authorized and licensed by the state of New Hampshire to sell alcoholic beverages for this purpose may also apply to the town for a permit to sell and serve set alcoholic beverages on a town sidewalk immediately adjacent to said restaurant in conjunction with the services of bona fide meals. The code enforcement officer shall be responsible to ensure that the placement of tables and chairs for this purpose does not obstruct the free passage of pedestrians. The area shall be clearly defined in a method approved by the code enforcement officer. Number 3 takes effect. This ordinance shall take effect 14 days after passage and publication of notice as required by RSA 47:18. First reading, May 15th, 2019.
Madam Chair, you'll have to have a public hearing on this at the next meeting.
At the next meeting. Is there any correspondence to the town council?
I have none.
And then any closing comments by town councilors? Councilor Finch.
First off, just a reminder that Heron Point is now open. The gate's fully operational, so go enjoy that park. And the second thing, just to put on a calendar for members of the public, on Monday, June 17th, we're going to host our first in a series of conversations with the council at the Stone Church. So it'll be a presentation about the basics of how Newmarket government works, some information about taxes and the town charter, and then a chance to chat with 3 of the councilors, and we hope to do a rotation 4 times over the course of the next year with more information to be forthcoming.
Thank you for your work on that. The 3 of you, I saw the document that you sent earlier, and I think that it's going to be a really great program, so thank you. Any other comments? No? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you.